Omar, Sadr, I'm going to start with you. This book, as we've discussed, is a volume of essays that reflect on letters exchanged between a president. I wonder if you can talk a bit about the role of the public intellectual for us in today's Afghanistan, Omar. You've written in particular about the need for a deeper discourse and debate around what it means for Afghanistan to be a republic. Can you share with us what is the state of that debate and discourse today, and how does it connect with politics? And do you think a kind of public consciousness around the value and the content of the republic has advanced far enough to ward off the return of the emirate or a collapse into civil war? Please talk to us about the work that remains to be done, and how do you do that work in the face of relentless violence and uncertainty?
Thank you, Dr. Dipali. I hope you can hear me. Good evening from Kabul. First of all, I must say that Cocker Foundation and Heart of Asia Society have done a great job by bringing different scholars and practitioners together to revisit our history. I had a chance to write my reflection for the Persian volume of this book. And now it's a true honor to discuss letters exchanged between President Najib and Professor Cocker with a group of very dear friends and scholars. So let me now respond to your question in two parts. First, I will try to talk about how the letters can help us to understand Afghanistan and the way intellectuals frame discourses, and how politicians and intellectuals converse with each other, taking this case, taking the conversation between Professor Cocker and Najib as a case. And second, I will move on to speak about whether a kind of public consciousness around the values and the content of the Republic has advanced far enough, as you asked, that can ward off the return of an emirate or probably kind of collapse into civil war. So now first, for me personally, these letters represent a kind of a microcosm of the history of Afghanistan, by which we can understand the dynamism of somehow the entire modern history of the country. What do I mean by that? So let me explain that by 4 points quickly. Number one, this is a conversation, of course, between an intellectual and a politician, but specifically, here Cocker is a symbol of intellectual in exile. And if you look back at the history, since inception of intellectualism, constitutionalism, and an effort of intellectuals for democracy, and probably, let's say, republic, as you asked, they were sent in exile. At the current juncture, if we speak about the last 20 years, or probably now that we are, of course, there is a democratic setup, but there is also a toxic environment where intellectuals may not have enough capacity to speak the truth to the power. That means that they are mentally in exile now at this moment. So to give you one example, on 18 April 2021, just last month, President Ghani stated that the ones who are not with the Republic has no place in the government, right? So this was somehow a very clear message. Either you are with me or you are against me, and redefining the boundaries of a republic and making it so much personalized, right? Now, what are the possibilities that probably now intellectuals debate or reflect on republicanism or the political order that we aim for? Of course, there are alternative platforms, or probably what we can say counter-publics. Very recent one that I have observed is a new platform which is created online where people can speak directly with each other, Clubhouse. So that there, and you can see the youth, the women activists, and human rights activists, those who are somehow concerned with the values like liberty and equality, coming and debating most of these issues together. Now, second, as this volume is named In Search of Peace, we can see throughout the history politicians reaching out to intellectuals in search of peace. Well, these are the war and conflict is initiated by politicians, of course, but once there's a stalemate, they come back to intellectuals. Like, let me give you a couple of examples from the history before Kokar and Najib. Good example is, for example, Mahmoud Beg Terzi, who was sent in exile by Amir Abdurrahman Khan, and then he was invited back during Habibullah. Ghubar was internally displaced and sent in exile. Later on, Zahir Shah invited him to contribute to 1964 constitution, same as with so many other intellectuals who were working in the circles like Awakened Youth or Watan Party in 1960s or 50s. Now, what was the response? What is the response of the intellectuals now that they receive invitations? When you read the letters exchanged between Najib and Kokar, of course, Professor Kokar rejects the invitation and he questions the legitimacy of Najibullah, the way that sovereignty of Afghanistan is undermined, the identity has been redefined, and how he doesn't have that capacity to lead the peace process, right? So somehow I see the same kind of movements or rhetorics at the moment, where President Ghani's legitimacy has been questioned just because he has not been true to the Republican values, right? The way election was conducted, the way the corruption is there, the way the entire republic is personalized. So I will come to that in a while, but somehow you see a continuation again. Third, these letters are somehow also a conversation between a person, two people, not two institutions. That can also give us something about history of Afghanistan. These letters are full of emotions. They are not official, they are unofficial. And that is the way politics is framed in Afghanistan. Politics is really, it has been a rationalized or institutionalized practice. It's so much personalized relationship between politicians and others. So it's not just about how politicians shape these politics, but also intellectuals like diasporic community and intellectuals who were in exile, like Professor Kokar. They also did not initiate such kind of associations or institutions to connect back to homeland, right? So same as now, what you see the status of activism when it comes to public intellectuals, you do not see lively institutional behavior or probably associations or institutions to bring together intellectuals to reflect on the political system or values or republicanism. So that's all about the first point. Now let me come to the second point about the question that you raised, whether a kind of public consciousness around the values and the content of Republic is there or it's advanced or not. Now, for me, unfortunately, I'm not much optimist on this. The current juncture is somehow, with the discourse around these concepts, is somehow very nascent. It's like in a baby stage. So let me give you, again, back to reconnect to history. Early this week, Hashd Soap Daily, it's a popular newspaper in Afghanistan, celebrated its 15th anniversary, where a group of friends and I spoke about rule of three prominent intellectuals, one historian, of course, Ghulam Muhammad Ghubar, Rahnawat Daryab, and Qasim Ahgar. So while the legacy of these figures are lesser known to the Western world, but they have played a notable and noticeable role in debating and fighting for the rights, liberty, and equality, which constitute core values and the content of Republic. Now, for example, one of these intellectuals, Qasim Ahgar, he demised in 2014, the same year that Professor Kokar passed away. Now, to what extent now we connect to the values that was campaigned or advanced by most of these intellectuals like Qasim Ahgar or Kokar? Unfortunately, we have done, when it comes to enlightenment or values like liberty and equality, there is not much advancement, but we have done great job in other areas and in the last 20 years when it comes to knowledge production, or probably in sports or IT. It's very good. But the discourse of Republic somehow now at this juncture was articulated and framed as negotiations got momentum in September 2019. So it was somehow abrupt. All of a sudden it came up. And it's also, that's one dimension of it, that the establishment tried to establish this discourse, first of all, against the Taliban, but at the same time, it was not just Republic versus Taliban or Emirate, but at the same time, there was also a domestic enemy to it. And by that, the establishment tried to target all those political opponents who were in Kabul, for instance. Now, some of the content which is developed around the concept of Republic is somehow reactionary. It's not conceptualizing this idea, but reacting to what a government is doing. For example, let me give you three, and I will end with that. When I earlier cited one of the quotations from President Ghani, that he said either you're with government, or if you're not with the Republic, you should be out of the state. Now, some of the public intellectuals, they came up. Let me quote one of them, that one of the poets wrote that Afghanistan has three sides. It's not two sides, Emirate versus Republic, but there are three sides: the Republic, the Emirate, and the sheeps. The sheeps here was a metaphor of the common masses, citizens, who were betrayed by politicians when it comes to Republic and democracy. The second one is, there's a famous now statement here in Kabul which says the Republic of ethnocentrists, Jumhuri Khaungaraha, Kutullaha Khaungara in Farsi. And the last one is, of course, Jumhuri Se Nafara, which is a Republic of triplet, three people. That's a President Ghani and the Aidis. So that you see that how the discourse is. It's not much mature enough. And the last point that I will end here, I think, is that, of course, we should not forget the role of international funding and international partners in shaping these discourse. For example, most recently, the US Embassy, the past section, Public Affairs, they have released a call for proposal which is worth over $2 million, which calls for proposals like on the topics like national identity, national solidarity, and all these values. So to what extent you see here how US investment, despite the fact that they deny that they are not engaged in nation building, however, lots of funds, as a case, for example, is spent on this. Or for example, how mass media has been funded to take such kind of public debates and bring popular intellectuals in front of the people. I will end here. Thank you so much, and I will be happy to take questions later.